Good evening, everyone. Calls meeting to order. I humbly acknowledge the land in which you live, learn, work, and play. It's Treaty 8 territory. The traditional lands of the Cree and Dene and unceded territory of the Métis. Anyone in attendance this evening wishes to address council on any of the agenda items, please register now with Legislative Services located to my right, as I'll be only calling upon those who have registered to speak. You must register prior to the start of the agenda item that you're speaking to, and registered delegates will be permitted 5 minutes to speak and must remain on topic and then remain seated for questions from council. Before we adopt the agenda, is there anyone who wishes to serve a notice of motion? I have a notice of motion myself. I, Mayor Sandy Bowman, serve notice of my intent to bring forward the following motion for council's consideration at the March 14, 2023 council meeting. That administration explore and bring forward options to coincide with the consideration of the 2024 capital budget for the potential development of an additional snow dump to be located south of the Athabasca River Bridge. Can I have someone make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Brunjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second the motion.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I'm seeing none, so I'll call them for a vote. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have someone make that motion? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that the recommendations contained in items 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 be approved.
Thank you. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Weigel?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. This evening, the first item we would like to address is the proclamation we have for tonight's meeting, which being the Alberta Francophonie Month. Whereas French and English are the two official languages of Canada, with French being the first non-Indigenous European language spoken in what is now the province of Alberta. And whereas the regional municipality of Buffalo is home to 4,390 French-speaking people. And whereas the French-speaking population in the regional municipality of Buffalo has increased threefold since 2001. And whereas the regional municipality of Buffalo has a strong, diverse, and vibrant French-speaking community and is proud to recognize the diversity of our region. Whereas the French-speaking community contributes to the social, economic, and cultural fabric of the regional municipality of Buffalo. And whereas the ACFA Regional de Buffalo has been working in our region since 1980, organizing events, providing community services, and workshops. Whereas 2018 marked the province of Alberta's official proclamation of March as the Alberta Francophone Month. Now therefore I, Sandy Bowman, Mayor of the Regional Municipality of Buffalo, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Alberta Francophone Month. We'll now move on to the public hearing for bylaw number 23/002, which is a land use bylaw amendment, text amendment to the C1/Community Commercial District, specific to Lot 4, Block 65, Plan 782-2691, and to Section 93B.1 C of the Land Use Bylaw 99/059. But before declaring the public hearing open, I give a quick overview of the process. I'll declare the public hearing open followed by the introduction of the item by administration and questions from council. We will then move into written submissions, followed by verbal submissions from anyone registered to speak. To conclude, we will hear closing statements and the hearing will be declared closed. I hereby declare the public hearing open. A public hearing is a legislative process, and in making a decision on a proposed recommendation, council can only consider information received through this hearing. As a reminder for council members, in an effort to be respectful of the public hearing process, it is important that everyone participate for the duration of the hearing. Should you need to leave the chamber during the public hearing, please call for a point of privilege and we can take a brief recess. So right now I'd like to invite Chris Booth, Manager of Planning Development, to provide an introduction and opening statement.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Chris Booth, Manager of Community Development Planning. I'm here to present two proposed amendments to the Land Use Bylaw that are both intended to facilitate a potential cannabis retail store in the shopping plaza at 700 Signal Road in Thickwood. The first amendment is a site-specific amendment to the C1 or Community Commercial Zone for 700 Signal Road. The C1 zone currently does not permit cannabis retail stores, so if this amendment is approved here tonight, it would make such a store possible in the C1 zone for this site only. Accompanying this, an amendment to Section 93B.1c of the Land Use Bylaw is also proposed. This section prevents cannabis retail stores from being located next to properties that have residential uses on the main floor. It therefore must be amended to allow a cannabis retail store at 700 Signal Road, which is adjacent to two condominium buildings. To ensure public feedback was taken into consideration, the applicant conducted a public engagement event on October 27, 2022, and received no comments or concerns on their proposal. However, administration also mailed nearly 300 letters to neighboring property owners seeking comments on the proposed amendments, and received 4 letters in opposition from nearby residents and a neighboring condominium association. These letters expressed concerns about safety, public health, declining property values, and proximity to schools. Staff considered each of these factors and reached out to a variety of stakeholders in an effort to address them. These stakeholders included the RCMP, Alberta Health, as well as the rmwb's Community Protective Services and Assessment and Taxation departments. In summary, the RCMP advised that they have received no complaints or encountered any safety issues with respect to cannabis retail stores since cannabis was legalized in 2018. Alberta Health Services also stated that they had no objections. Regarding property values, the RMWB's Assessment and Taxation Department has not noted any impacts arising from the presence of cannabis retail stores. It should be noted that the proposed location is outside of the required 150-meter buffer from schools. This radius is already a requirement in the Land Use Bylaw, and staff apply it whenever an application for a new store is reviewed. This setback from schools was one of several requirements established in the Land Use Bylaw after cannabis was legalized in 2018. Administration adopted a cautious approach after legalization, and while we are supportive of the application before you tonight, we remain committed to taking measured steps forward, respecting the sensitivities that still exist around cannabis. The first such step is the fact that this is a site-specific amendment that will not affect the C1 district as a whole, but just this site for now. Other C1 districts, including those in Beacon Hill, Dickensfield, Eagle Ridge, and elsewhere in Thickwood, would still not allow cannabis stores. The second, and perhaps more crucial step, is that we are recommending that cannabis retail store be listed as a discretionary use planning commission at 700 Signal Road. This is a particularly rigorous category of zoning that allows administration to conduct a higher level of scrutiny on development permit applications. It also compels us to inform neighboring property owners of any decision made on that permit application, allowing neighboring property owners to appeal that decision should they wish. Finally, rather than entirely removing requirements for separation between cannabis retail stores and residential uses, staff felt it was more appropriate to only relax requirements around higher density buildings. For now, rules would be kept in place prohibiting cannabis retail stores from being located next to lower density housing. Administration believes that this proposal strikes a balance between addressing public concern and creating a pro-business environment where we can support entrepreneurs in a
Lost you there.
responsible way. With this, I conclude my presentation and welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any questions from Council for Administration? Councilor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair, Chris. So this meets all our criteria when we did the bylaw amendment for these stores a few years ago?
Through the chair, I would suggest that it does. We heard loud and clear when engagement was conducted, and for the record, there was extensive engagement conducted. We heard loud and clear that there were concerns around separation distances and that the public wanted greater separation than what the province was proposing from schools, which was 100 meters. We went 150, and we also expanded that to other sensitive uses such as daycares, hospitals, detox rehabilitation centers, which were not captured by the province.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Chris, and just take the time that I do know appreciate the work that you guys do. And a lot of times we only hear about the bad stuff, but I know that your people are up there moving the permits along as compliant as they can be. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and to Chris, thank you for the presentation. Does the proposed change to section 93B.1 bracket C refer to the whole region?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, yes, it does. It was, while it does affect or apply to the whole region, what I would suggest is that we found a balance, whereas it won't apply to opening it up to cannabis retail next to any residential use. We're trying to dial it down to really only opening it up to allowing it next to higher density buildings. But for the record, yes, it would apply throughout the region.
And when you mentioned abutting on, that included schools, right?
Through the chair, separation distance from schools would be captured through the buffers, the required separation distances, not through this particular section.
Okay. So did the 300 letters that were sent out to property owners in the Signal Road area, did it include the proposed change to section 93.B1 in bracket C?
Through the chair, I must admit, I do not have the notice handy. I am unsure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I think that's an important change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. Are there any other questions from Council for Administration? I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Do we have any written submissions that need to be acknowledged?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Confirming for the record, there's been no written submissions received for this public hearing.
Thank you. And do we have any verbal submissions?
We do. We have 2 registered speakers to come forward. We have Jean Doby, President, and Karen Puga, Recorder with the Barrington Condo Association.
Okay. If Jean and Karen are here, they could come up. Just please state your name for the record, and as a reminder, you have 5 minutes for your submission, and please remain seated for questions afterwards. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Karen Puga, and I'm with the Barrington Condo Association. With me is Jean Doby, board member, and Linda DeMarco is sitting in the gallery there as well. We are here to express our opposition to this recommendation to change the land use bylaw. The Barrington is located at 610 Signal Road and shares a property line with 700 Signal Road retail space. It is home to 62 units with a mixed long-term residents, families, and renters. We had responded to the notice to adjacent property owners in November with a 2-page letter expressing our concerns around proximity to residential and school neighborhood, community safety, and overall health and wellness. The proposed site of 700 Signal Road is surrounded by multiple condo apartment buildings and one of the largest townhome blocks in the community. It also sits on a main travel corridor where several hundred students pass on their travels to and from three schools located in the next block. High school students are regularly seen on site on the block as they stop in to visit a convenience store for a Slurpee, snack, or grab a bite at the pizza shop. There have been recent changes to the Alberta Gaming, Liquor, and Cannabis regulation, which occurred in August 2022. This resulted in the deletion of section 3.2.6, which required retailers to have screened window coverings due to increase in violence and robberies that were being experienced in some communities. There's little information right now available in Canada about the legalization and impacts. However, we were able to look at a couple of sources. The 2022 Canadian Cannabis Survey was released by the Canadian government in December. It highlights cannabis use is highest among 20 to 24-year-olds at 50%, followed by age group 16 to 19-year-olds at 37%. Studies from the US that have had legislation for a little longer period are now showing there is a correlation and a risk and influencing factor with location, placement, and retail opportunities near youth. And that these factors can normalize and increase use. As a result, states like Washington and Colorado have implemented a 100-foot or 300-meter buffer to support creating safe distances between retail outlets and schools. Other communities like states like California have a 180-meter buffer. Some quick research found buffer distances between schools for Grand Prairie, Red Deer, and Vancouver is at 300 meters. Edmonton, 200 meters. Safety. There's been a noticeable increase in vandalism and break-ins on either side of the Barrington. We sit in the middle, right next to one strip mall and the other strip mall. It's concerning for residents who live there. And I think it's symptomatic of some deeper issues we have in the community. And I think they revolve around some addictions. And we need, as a community, to understand that as we proceed. We also have in that block, we're bound by a bar and a liquor store. And now we're talking about adding another addictive substance of cannabis. The closest retail location for cannabis is 1.3 kilometers away in a commercial block with other restaurants, pharmacies, and groceries, making this a regular stop in one's routine. Stats on retail sites are starting to appear, and Alberta is at its saturation point, with a standard of one store serving 7,500 to 10,000 people appearing optimal. In Fort McMurray, we currently have 7 stores to approximately 54,000 adults, according to the 2021 census, putting Fort McMurray on par and not underserviced, as which I've heard in the past. The Barrington Condo Association is concerned that if approved, this will open up 700 Signal Road retail location for future applications, as it pinpoints. A quick reference. So we're respectfully asking that council do not approve this amendment at this time, and they take a look at a review of buffer distances for schools.
Karen, you were just over the 5 minutes there, but I think we got the gist of what you're going, and thank you very much for coming forward with especially the statistics and time you took to put into that. And the studying you did for it and the information. But we'll just open up for questions from council, and that probably bring the rest of what you need to say in with yourself and Jean. If there's any questions from council, Councillor Dogar.
Thank you very much, sir, giving me. Thank you very much, presenters. Lot of efforts you did with the detailed figures. Very thoughtful of you and added to my knowledge. If I have rightly understood, this this amendment is regarding that marijuana shop in the near Black Horse. Thank you very much for confirming. You see, Mr. Mayor, if you remember, that one of the bylaws was turned down, that about...
Councillor Dogar, this is questions for the presenters right now.
Yes, I'm coming to that, but I
Okay, well,
want
that's
to add
what
to
we're
my...
doing right now.
I want to add to my argument that that was turned down because of the medical reasons. Medical reasons
Yeah,
do not...
there's a debate section later. We'll be debating with this on the floor, but right now it's just questions for the presenters. You
Okay,
can bring
fine.
that up
I'm
later.
coming to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You see, certainly anything which is bad for health, though it is approved by the federal government, but certainly they should be as away from the population, from the childhood, and that is ethically. I have seen that place today also, and in the past also many times.
Yeah,
such
there's-
like shops should be as away as possible.
Sorry, Councillor, do you have
Thank
a question for the presenter?
The good job you are doing.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for the presenter? Councillor Benjogo?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thank you for the presentation. And thank you to administration too for the prior presentation. I just wanted to know if we have statistics to back up the impact of having these stores close to schools and teenagers.
Councillor
and
Benjogo, do you have a question for the presenters right now? We can go back to administration later, but right now, just a question for people that are presenting right now.
No, I think she might have the answer.
Oh, okay.
Do
Go
you
ahead,
have
sorry.
any answer about that? The impact, is there any record or historical fact as to how this affects, might affect youths and teenagers who live around there in statistics?
Am I on now? My name is Gene Doby. I'm a resident long-term in Fort McMurray for 44 years. My little bit of research on this was came from the Michigan medicine faculty from the University of Michigan, and they interviewed a few communities and found that 70% of the parents were opposed to any medical or recreational cannabis stores in their neighborhood. That answers the question. And I think saying that we're representing the 70 to 80% of our community right now by saying it's not good for our community.
Okay, thank you. I'll just wait. Maybe I'll have.
Okay, Councillor, thanks, Councillor Benjogo. Councillor Weigel?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. You were talking about the changes of that were done in 2022 due to expensive violence and break-ins. Where can I find that information? Because it just seems contradictory to what we heard from administration.
I found it on a couple of websites and sources, and that's the reason why the Alberta government removed the screening. The sources I've found focused on, I think, about 32 incidences that happened in Calgary, although there could be others.
And I apologize for my ignorance here. So they removed the blind screen, so like you couldn't see in the store. So now they removed them so you could see in the store? Is that correct?
So that's the change in legislation. So when they first passed the bylaw, they had said that it needs to be screened so that youth or outside people could not see what's going on and be affected by the added advertising that may happen in store.
Right. And so they took the screens off due to the activity that was going on, so the outside people could see what was going on inside.
So the regulation does not require that anymore. That is correct.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Karen, you cited some statistics. This is new. Cannabis regulations in Canada is new, and obviously the opportunity to generate statistics and outcomes has really not been gathered yet, but you alluded to some facts you got from the States. Is that correct, where cannabis has been legalized a little bit longer? I believe you indicated that some of the states were looking at 300 meters away from schools in populated areas. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes, there's some studies that Colorado has been doing, and that they have moved to a 300 meter, or they call it 1,000 feet. But when we calculate it out, but there's also communities in Canada that hold that standard as well.
Were those communities initially 300, or are you aware of whether they implemented that after problems? Are you aware
I
of that?
can't be 100% sure
Okay.
because it's been, I spent the weekend trying to, see what's out there.
Oh.
I believe that there was some changes and some moves but I can't tell you which community or state that was.
That's fair. I was just trying to ascertain in my brain whether some municipalities have already identified. And now the other thing I believe you said was that the Alberta government is currently starting to do some reviews provincially. Is that, did I hear that right?
I believe that the Canadian government is doing some reviews, but again, I feel like they don't have the information yet that we're talking about statistically.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your efforts. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Any other questions from council? Councillor Bussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman, through the chair to the presenters. You mentioned you're representing the board or the owners. Now, we heard from Mr. Davis that 300 letters were sent out, and I think there was 4 opposed. Again, we don't know if the letters got to the owners or tenants, as there's renters, a lot of tenants around that area. Out of the 62 owners in your building, how many did you survey the owners themselves, and what was the for and against, or do you know?
Karen surveyed through the board, and the board was unanimous. There's 6 of us on the board, again representing our facility.
Okay.
And I think we're representative of our community as well.
Okay. So there was no individual survey amongst the other 60, 55, or whatever's left, non-board members, owners. Like, you didn't, I know you're here representing the board, but did you speak to all the other owners, or no?
No, I
okay.
didn't.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Gene.
Thank you, Councillor Bussier. Do you have any other questions from council? Councillor Cardinal?
Good day, thanks, presenters. I guess a quick question. I noticed that you had said that there's some violence that had been happening due to, addictions. And are you referring to the marijuana that people are smoking or getting from the shops as gateways to violence?
I can't say the reason beyond that it's caused. I think that's a better question for the RCMP to answer. I don't think that if you were to travel through the community, Thickwood, that neighborhood that the Barrington is on Signal Road, as well as downtown, I see that on a consistent basis, there are break-ins and broken windows and boarded up doors. And it's happening more frequently. And it, to me, is just a sign that there's something going on. And typically that behavior is partly addiction.
I know, but when you say addiction, I kind of wanted to ask, do you believe that a marijuana store in this location would cause more violence? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think we believe it would enhance the opportunity for more traffic that could create more violence. We've seen next door where there's a store there that sells vitamins and I can't remember the name of the store, but it was burglarized, set on fire. We've had numerous break-ins into our own building and, mailboxes being broken into, which is, it's unusual. We're seeing an increase in incidents in our own facility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, but you mentioned, Jean, that the supplement store was broken into. Yeah, that was in that same block as their proposed cannabis store. So would you be opposed to any business going in there, or just a cannabis store?
Yeah, just the cannabis store.
Because I believe that location earlier, there was a liquor store in that plaza at one time.
Yeah, but I think that's a discretionary use that they were able to open, but it didn't last.
But my question is, like, the supplement store was broken into. It wasn't due to addictions, or it's a supplement store as a comparative to the higher traffic. So what I'm just you're opposed to any business moving in, or just the cannabis store?
Just the cannabis store.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jean. Thank you very much. Do we have any other delegates for this item?
We have no other delegates.
Is there anybody else in the gallery wishing to come forward to present? Not seeing any. Are there any questions of council for administration? As a reminder, once public hearing is closed, no further questions or information gathering can occur. Councillor Weigel?
Not yet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through the chair. What is the distance between the schools and the proposed cannabis store at this point?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, I do not have the exact distance, but judging by the map that was produced, I would suggest that it's a few more meters beyond 150.
Okay, thank you. And the presenters, and obviously I don't know the backgrounds, but the presenters that were just there were talking about how the regulation in Alberta has been changing due to outbreaks of violence and robberies, where I believe that you stated that there has been no such claim so far. And so do you know why there'd be a discrepancy there, or where the information was getting from and why that would be different?
Through the chair to Councillor Weigel, very fair question. The information that we obtained was local, obtained through our RCMP, through their experiences. They have not seen that linkage occurring. It's not to dismiss the fact that that may be occurring in other communities, but certainly here they have not noticed it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Benjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, my main concern will be the proximity to students, schools, children, and teenagers, especially as a mother as well. As adults, people can take a decision on what they want to buy and use for recreation. Is the distance that Edmonton has adopted is about 200 meters. Is that new to you, or did you benchmark with other communities around us, given the kind of information people are spreading about Fort McMurray, which might not be correct, but lots of are talking about use and circulation in our city. So did you explore those information, or is it new to you? Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Benjoko, we did do benchmarking. Administration in general, with the support of our communications department, did do benchmarking. There was work done to compare the rules that were proposed here with Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, and Grand Prairie. As the presenters, as the residents noted, there was one instance of a community, Red Deer specifically, that had proposed 300-meter separation distance. That was from provincial healthcare facilities. They did also propose, I'm sorry, I stand correct, 300 meters from all facilities. Grand Prairie proposed a 300-meter setback from high schools and a 150-meter setback from elementary schools. Edmonton, 200 meters from schools and libraries. Calgary, 150 meters, again, which is consistent with ours. Separation distance from schools. No separation distance was proposed from post-secondary schools. So there was a mixture. And 150 was what was viewed to be appropriate in this community, particularly given the fact that we do have a number of a lot of our commercial sites are within close proximity to schools, daycares. We've seen a lot of instances where applications haven't been able to be necessarily entertained or even approved in some cases because of their proximity. So the 150 meters was seen to be a balanced level that would allow an opportunity for cannabis retail stores while still going a step beyond what the province wanted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benjoko. Councillor Ball?
Thank you, through the chair, to Chris. We keep talking about this 150 meters, and I want to look at it a little bit differently. That's where the school is, correct? But that's not where the kids are all the time. I have this habit of drinking these things called Rock Stars, and there's a little store right there beside where they want to put this that I go buy them every single day. And if I go there at noon, it is lined up out the door with kids, which is going to be a stone's throw away from where this cannabis store is. So, yeah, they're not on the school site, but they're certainly utilizing all the different services in that area at different times during the day. So I really struggle with supporting this, and I lived...
Sorry, Councillor Ball. Right now we're in the question.
So
we have a question for administration.
Did you look into how it affects the neighborhood as a whole and where the kids are, or is it just about where the school building is?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, this was primarily in relationship to where the schools are. As previously stated, if there are children or if there are students that are frequenting some of the commercial establishments, then we may not be in a situation where we'd be able to approve any cannabis retail stores if we're measuring from where students are likely to go.
That's fair. There's obviously residents in multiple condo units, and this amendment, as I understand it, and correct me, it's site-specific, and it's relative to, it's more so about the condo buildings that are in proximity to it. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct.
So this wouldn't be applied to any other site across the community?
No, the site-specific nature of this and allowing it in the C1 district is site-specific. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to the presenter. Are any bylaws being breached from this building going at the specific location allocated?
Sorry, pardon me, through the chair, I didn't quite catch that.
I said, through the chair, sorry, to the presenter, are any bylaws being breached from the location of this facility? Or proposed facility, sorry.
Through the chair, not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and through to the presenter. Chris, I don't want to beat this to death, but is it 150 meters from all schools throughout the region?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, it is 150 meters within the urban service area, 100 meters in the rural service area.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. I don't know quite how to frame this question, but I'll do my best. We look at facts, distance, meters. Councillor Ball brought up an issue, and one of mine is, do we ever look at the statistics related to I'm kind of torn. My son died from illegal use of marijuana versus legal use where it's regulated. Do we ever take that into account when we make these decisions? Because I believe it's a factor that should be considered. So is that kind of statistical information as it relates to the availability to consumers taken into account whenever we look at these bylaw-related questions? Does that make sense to you, sir?
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, it does. What I would suggest is that we approach this partly from a land use perspective of making an assessment about whether this made sense, given that this was, a pre-established commercial area, and was there likely to be any adverse impacts arising from a use like that occurring? And through, again, as I've mentioned, through our discussions with stakeholders, namely RCMP, Alberta Health, we didn't hear of any adverse impacts that were likely to arise based on their experiences. So I would suggest that based on that exercise, we felt it was appropriate.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Bussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman. And through the chair to Chris. Chris, can you just educate me on how we approach the public? Like I read the planning development, the applicant hosted a public engagement on October 27th. No concerns. Like, do they have a room rented, or how does that work? And then can you explain how you mail out 300 letters? Is it just random addresses?
Through the chair, excellent question. I'll begin with the public engagement held by the applicant. That is a requirement. Anytime there's an amendment that occurs, there's an expectation that the applicant will hold in a location that's open to the public for an acceptable duration of time during hours that people are likely to be there. An open house, and that did occur. The applicant held one. As I understand it, there was not a significant turnout. There were no concerns raised during that particular meeting, but that is why the municipality does do the mail out. Not everyone always feels comfortable coming to an open house, so it's part of our due diligence to be able to go and have that conversation with people or initiate that conversation through the mail outs. And that was to the credit of the residents, how they approached us with their concerns. It's not random. Those mailouts there is some discretion that we can apply. It's fairly typical that we will use either a 60-meter or 120-meter radius when providing those mailouts, but there is some discretion that we can use based on the situation. So it was not random in this case.
Okay, through the chair, Chris, is anybody from RM in attendance at the public engagement by the applicant?
Through the chair, yes, it is standard practice for us to have people observe to make sure that that engagement is conducted in a way that is deemed to be acceptable, that there was appropriate opportunity given to people. Yes.
So do we know like what date and what kind of time this presentation happened?
Yes, it was October 27th,
yeah.
as you see, between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m. at a local restaurant.
Okay. Just one last question regarding the letters. I mean, if you look at the 600 block and the 610 block of the Barrington, there's 280 units between the approximately 290 units. Like, so you obviously didn't send letters to every owner on those two blocks. Like, I think there's 224 in the 600 block and there's 60 some units. So that would be close to the 300 right there, and you still have Stroud Bay and Caldwell, and I guess my concern is how engaged do we get the residents, or how hard, like, are they do we provide an envelope for people to send their yay or nay back, or do they got to get postage? And
no, on the public notices that go out, there's a contact information. They can reach out directly to the planner who's handling the file. There's typically phone number, email address. That's commonly how we receive that information. But to your earlier point, some of those streets, those would fall outside of that 60-meter buffer that I suggested that we typically will use in the urban area. So Caldwell Crescent, for example, would be well outside of that.
so 60 meters is a limit.
I believe 60-meter was what was employed in this case.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boussier. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. And I guess I want some clarification. When you said there's communication went out, you said that we received no negative feedback?
Through the chair, the applicant did not receive negative feedback through their open house. We received 4 letters with negative feedback through our notices.
Okay. And then one of those letters was the one that they were talking about during the presentation?
That is my understanding.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair. Just before we, close off this hearing, just a question for you, Mr. Booth. What I see here this evening, everything fits. Everything fits the policy that council created ahead of this stuff being legalized. Basically, what's being proposed here tonight meets, I guess, our policies. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, I would suggest that the only thing that is not met is that it is being proposed in a C1 district, which was not originally the intention.
And the other question, now that we've been a few years into this, from a planning perspective and development, I don't see people lying outside those stores. I don't see a whole lot of crime in front of those stores. Has there been an uptake in, protective services around these stores since they've been operating?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, the RCMP has indicated that there has not been an uptick.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Do you have any other questions from council for administration? I'm not seeing it, so I'll just finish with the question, Chris. With the difference we talk about where the zoning is here that wasn't included in the original bylaw, and this alluded to what Councillor Ball had mentioned about facilities that are close by. We see in Eagle Ridge a large cannabis retail store. Close by there's gas stations, convenience stores, movie theaters, Dairy Queen, all visited by all different ages, and I probably visit Dairy Queen more times than I should. And a lot of the students from the nearby schools are there as well. what difference does it make what that zoning is there to what is proposed at the Thickwood Plaza, Thistle Heights Plaza, rather?
Through the chair to the mayor, I would suggest that that is why we are in favor of this. We were, if I can use a colloquial term, taking baby steps with respect to implementing legalization. We were starting with higher density commercial zones. We're now 4 years into this, having seen no impacts in the community. And so that's why we felt that it was appropriate at this time, albeit at a site-specific level, to start small.
Okay, thank you. And is that because of the how close the residences are to this facility, to this building?
I would suggest that would be fair.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and thanks for the presentation and for answering all the questions. Do we have any final questions for administration? Does administration have anything further to add in closing comments?
Through the chair to your worship, no, I do not.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So I'll now declare the public hearing closed. Coming out of the public hearing, we now have the second and third readings of bylaw number 23/002 for council's consideration. Can I have someone make the motion for a second reading of bylaw number 23/002? Councillor Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that bylaw number 23/0002, being both a land use bylaw amendment specific to Lot 4, Block 65, Plan 782 to 691, and a general amendment to Section 93B.1 in bracket C of the land use bylaw be read a second time.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Grandison.
Yeah, I second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. And are there any other comments or debate of council? This is time to debate. I won't stop you from talking. Most likely. Councillor Grandison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, you'll notice today that I waited till the appropriate time. Look at that. My comments are related more specific to the question that I asked administration earlier. As much as I empathize with the concerns of the citizens that spoke to us today, I also look at accessibility to regulated marijuana and ensuring that people have a healthy supply to a drug that's legal. Whether I like it or not, it's still legal in our country, and people are dying from illegal use, from drugs that are not regulated. And so I'm somewhat conflicted with my concerns for the citizens and the accessibility to healthy, regulated marijuana. And for that reason, I would be more in support of ensuring that our citizens have ready, accessible access to healthy, clean marijuana versus unhealthy, dirty marijuana. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison, and really appreciate your take on it and what from your experience in that and that expertise. Thank you. Are there any other debate points or comments from council? Councillor Benjoko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, what's the closest cannabis store to this location in distance? Is there any store that can service this area?
Sorry, that would be administration?
Yes.
Do you know the closest distance to that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, the residents are correct. The nearest approved cannabis retail store is very near to the Sobeys, further down Thickwood Boulevard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, through the chair. Although I can appreciate what Councillor Grandison had to say, I don't know that it's our responsibility to supply clean marijuana to the public within 100 yards of your house. So, like I said, I lived in Stroud Bay, right behind there, and I don't know why we need to have a marijuana store or even a liquor store around every corner. They pop up one after another. I mean, it won't be long till my neighbor asks for a zoning change so they can have one in his backyard. I don't know that making it more convenient is the right answer. The current land use says that it's not applicable for that particular lot. So we're doing a site-specific amendment for one particular business to be able to operate in that spot. They could move down the road somewhere. I don't know what's available, but there are other opportunities. I just don't feel that this is the right place for it, and I don't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the point that really struck me the most, I think, was when Councillor Ball talked about seeing all the high school students in that area. To me, this is a point that strikes with me because the difference, I think, between the movie theater and that area versus the area over by Westwood High School is the high school. Is that we don't have elementary school kids going out to buy cannabis, but we do have high school kids and its access. And so for me, that's a big point there and needs to be considered about the accessibility. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. And just a comment, it appears from the report from administration, they sent out 300 letters. There was only 4 in opposition, and there appears to be no concerns from the RCMP or Alberta Health Services. So it is a bit of a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair. I 18 years being a trustee. I think kids make good decisions. I've never seen a kid in a cannabis store because I believe you got to be of age to be in there in the first place. And I hear this evening about schools and stuff. At Paddy Musquegan's, I believe there's one of them stores right across the street. There's an elementary school, but like I say, I believe in our kids and their parents. And substance abuse is not derived from a cannabis store. It's derived from many traumas. And I hear tonight about not in my backyard. The community is no worse today than what it was 4 years ago. In fact, I think what legalizing these products do is keep our kids a little safer from picking up stuff off the streets. Adults, not kids. And I remember right here in this municipality, I think some of these kids might have remembered it too. We sponsored an RCMP officer, and one day they picked up a pound of weed in a high school parking lot. So we're always going to have those social issues. So I won't be taunted by not in my backyard, because I think that all across the nation, the fact is, it hasn't brought about the violence that I heard about here tonight. I've never seen anybody lying outside a facility of sorts. Yes, and I agree with Councillor Ball. We have 100 barber shops, 100 pizza shops, 100 liquor stores. What is business? And at the end of the day, I believe in our kids. I believe in our parents. They make the right choices. No matter if you have a store or no store, kids are going to be pulled in a different direction. And it's our job as stewards of our own kids to make sure they make the right decisions. And I don't think that, I think that's one of the reasons why the government legalized this, because I was the first guy that said to Lance one time during COVID, why don't they shut down the liquor stores? You know, there's some of us drinking too much. Well, if you take that away, society runs wild. So I guess I'll put the support behind mental health and let business be business. And until I see people lying outside the stores and getting broken into, I see a whole new light at the end of the tunnel, because I think this is helping some of the people, and not everybody goes into the store addicts. So I'll be supporting this motion because I think we're spending over $5 million a year on economic development to get stuff. That's my belief, and I don't think that I have to sit in this chair and judge anybody and their problems. But I can tell you that there's no evidence at all this evening that I've seen that these stores deter our community. not at all. So I'll support administration's go ahead, and I think that in time, if you took a look around the community, these stores are in everybody's backyard, not just Fort McMurray, Alberta, but all across our province. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through the chair to the, I guess, just to us, I guess. Great debates, everybody, but great points, Keith. Business is business, and I guess I guess as a young man, let's just say, you know, you're two young guys want to open up this weed store, and you know they're not good at anything else, and they're just good at, you know, being the people that are going to open up this store or whatever it may be. And I really don't want to crush anybody's dreams when it comes to opening up a business, or not only that, letting choice be choice and letting life be life. And we all make bad choices in life, and sometimes we overcome them in general. But I did want to say that, you know, it doesn't breach any of the bylaws, and you know, I really take into consideration, you know, for the future considerations of possibly changing a bylaw, whatever it may be. But at this point, you know, it's not affecting. It's not. I really don't think it's going to change very much. I really don't think it's going to change our community very much if it's going to be if it's put in place. And I really wanted to acknowledge that, you know, it is a business venture, and Fort McMurray is about business and growth. And you know, what if we're to grow so large to where, you know, there's no room for other businesses, and then there's, you know, just you can't build anywhere else, and then nobody is able to do this business. I just figured that. Yeah, I just wanted to say that that's it. Business is business, and let people make their own choices. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Are there any other debate points or comments from council? I'm not seeing any. I have to say I agree with all the councillors here. Having children, I know every day they go out and when they're not home on time or they don't answer your text message, you're always worried. And Councillor Grandison is testament to that, what he's gone through. So I'll be supporting this motion, where I do agree with my other council colleagues on the worry about accessibility. I think statistics have shown in our community that the crime hasn't been increased by it. And I mean, if we can save one person in the community from doing something that is going to be considered dirty or have ill effect to them, and buying something legally would save them rather than buying something off the street. I think with the mental health of our community, it's, as Councilor McGrath mentioned as well, I have some faith in our children and what the choices they make and how their parents are bringing them up. So if there's no other comments or debate points from council, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? So that motion has been carried with 4 opposed. Can I have someone make the motion for the third reading? Councillor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that bylaw number 23/002 be read a third and final time.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Are there any other comments or debate points of council? No, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, sorry. All in favor? Councillor Banjoko? And the public hearings, we're voting on the same motion we already voted on. We just vote, it's the third reading of the public hearing. Yes. Yes. Okay, we have this, if you have a debate point or anything, Councilor Bajoko, we're past that. No, we can't. We're in a public hearing. We have to vote. So I'll try this again. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, so that's a tie vote, 5-5, so that motion's been defeated. Next, we have a report on the Community Plan and Homelessness, 2023-2024 grant allocation. I'd like to invite Deanne Berge, Director, Community and Protective Services, to introduce the report, please. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. Council, take a break. Sorry, Deanne. For a moment, wait until we go back online. There, we're returning now. Thanks, Deanne.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Deanne Berge. I'm the Director of Community and Protective Services. I am presenting the 2023-2024 Community Plan on Homelessness Grant Recommendations. The Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo is the local administrator of the federal and provincial government's funding to support homelessness initiatives. Through the Community Plan on Homelessness grant, these funds are distributed to nonprofit organizations whose goals align with the municipal, provincial, and federal objectives to end homelessness. The funding allocations before you have been reviewed and recommended by the Homelessness Initiative Strategic Committee, or HISC. HISC is an action-focused committee that stewards and advocates for the Community Plan on Homelessness and is a contract requirement of the federal government. HISC ensures that the recommendations comply with funding agreements, identifies system barriers, and works collaboratively with the community to alleviate those barriers. The Community Plan on Homelessness looks to provide solutions to permanent housing using a variety of strategic programs, including the Housing First program, which is intensive case management for those with high acuity, experiencing physical health concerns, chronic substance abuse, and mental health conditions. The Rapid Rehousing program is case management for those with medium to high acuity, and it's anticipated to be short-term housing for 3 to 6 months. The Permanent Supportive Housing program houses the most chronically homeless with severe barriers and is successful with participants who have otherwise been unable to sustain housing. This program provides 24/7 wraparound services. The Diversion program assists individuals that are or at risk of being homeless. The program strives to meet individuals where they are and build in supports before they enter the shelter system. The Centralized Intake program is a frontline program for all individuals seeking housing. This program conducts triage for assessing people and placing them into housing programs and outreach as required. Prevention programs include the Outreach program, where caseworkers assist with the community referrals, housing, employment, and provincial benefits like Alberta Works and AISH. And the Eviction Prevention program works with individuals who have received an eviction notice to support them in retaining their rental. The program offers one-time support with utility and rent arrears and works with individuals for referrals to community supports to prevent eviction in the future. Since 2009, 1,458 unique individuals have been housed through the Community Plan on Homelessness. During the first 3 quarters of the 2022-2023 funding year, 62 individuals were housed through the Rapid Rehousing or the Housing First program, and 32 individuals who were program participants successfully graduated to independent living. Administration conducts an outcomes analysis of funded programs prior to presenting recommendations to HISC. While there are multiple programs with similar models, each agency offers unique case management depending on the program and participant needs. There are measures in place to ensure that no participants are in more than one program at a time. The recommendations before you are based on this analysis and current funding priorities, which includes evaluating budgets for consistency across programs while ensuring program funding is sufficient for participant success. The administrative recommendation is that $5,267,728 be allocated to the 2023-2024 Community Plan on Homelessness grants, as outlined in Attachment 1, dated February 28, 2023. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanne. Do you have any questions from Council for Administration? Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, sir, for giving me a chance. Thank you, madam. It's a good presentation, informative. I just want to ask you, what is the distribution for Center of Hope?
Through the chair to Councillor Dogar, so that would be listed on Attachment 1 in your package.
Yes, I've seen that.
And they have through the chair to Councillor Dogar. So the Center of Hope has 3 programs: the Eviction Prevention Program, the Housing First Program, and the Permanent Supportive Housing Program. And those are really big numbers for me to add up. But so do you have your package in front of you? It's on that page.
Oh, yes.
Do you want me to add it
Madam,
up?
I had a glance through it, but I want to ask you, Center of Hope, I visited 2 times, nicely cleaned and well maintained. But the problem is, mostly the problem is at night, there's no night facility there. There's only day facility that they provide soup and certain other recreation activities. About 3 years, 4 years back, I also visited, and a night facility was there. Night facility is more important. Could you please plan on these lines also? During daytime, one could be at casino also, mall also, Mac Island also. Night is a difficult time. And you remember, there was a bomb blast fear in this building, and Salvation Army building is next door, and at night they didn't have any place to live. They had to run to Salvation Army Church. If we have a place at night facility.
Sorry, Councillor Dogar, this is just for the funding that's allocated for housing.
So funding, sir, they should include in funding.
I can answer that. So through the chair to Councillor Dogar, so there is 24-hour programs at the Center of Hope, and that's the permanent supportive housing. If what you're referring to is a shelter, this funding here that's before you tonight doesn't have anything to do with the shelters. The shelters are funded provincially. 100% of the shelters are funded through the province.
Different funding, different program. But we should think on everything.
Thank you, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I recognize that sometimes your reporting is rather onerous with the federal government and provincial government. How does our administrative funding stack up compared to other communities? Are we on par with them? Are we relatively even? I'm just asking the question of ensuring we're getting the most bang for our buck in terms of delivering these services.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, so the funding that's provided to the municipality for the administrative is dictated by the federal and the provincial government. So we receive 10% of the federal grant for administrative fees and 15% of the federal grant. And that's standard across the 7 cities. We're not aware of anyone that's taking less. But I do want to add something. So there are times when there's additional funding provided. So the administration hasn't taken fees off. For instance, when COVID funding came in, we didn't take any administrative fees off that. All of that went to the agencies. But there is a lot of requirements from the federal and provincial government that the administrative funding goes towards for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thanks, Dan, for the presentation. I just, the 5-point-something million is not really the issue. We should do all we can. But I'm wondering if we have statistics of the homeless population in our community, and if we do the math of how much we spend per person. And then leading to how we track the effectiveness of these different programs. Say, for instance, someone graduates from one program, goes to another, and all of that, because at the end of it, our focus is on ending homelessness. So I'm wondering how we are tracking our successes. And, yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko. So one of the things that's a requirement of administration with this funding is data. There's intensive data collected around those that are experiencing homelessness. And one of the ways that we gather that data is called a point-in-time count, or we call it a PIT count for short. So in 2022, we did a point-in-time count, and it was on September 27th. So we have community volunteers that go out and count those that are experiencing homelessness. On September 27th, 2022, there was 162 individuals counted. So again, I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's a point-in-time count. So that's one day we went out and we We use that as a measure. It's a tool for how we're doing. And to show how it's changed, in 2018, the count was 200. So from 2018 to 2022, the count has gone down 19%. But as far as stats go, we have close contact with the agencies who support the homeless or those experiencing homeless, and every week we know where we're at. So if there's an influx or if there's a specific group that needs assistance, there's sometimes where we bring administration and the organizations together. We call it a situation table, and we sit down and we talk about how can we support this, especially if there's youth or elders involved. We work really closely, and we know where we are every week with that data. And as far as ending homelessness, our goal is really to have functional zero. So functional zero for us is less than 3 individuals on the by name list. So we have centralized intake, which is sort of, in our opinion, no wrong door. So if someone goes to the hospital for help, or if someone goes to the Salvation Army for help, or the Center of Hope, we all have the same training. It's centralized intake, and it allows individuals to get put on the by name list to have access to housing. So at this time, there's 46 individuals on the by name list waiting for housing. So we pair them with an agency who then finds them a place to live, whether it be a private landlord, a public landlord, or sometimes a hotel, depending on the circumstances.
So it's safe to assume we'll have 300 maximum on the average that we're looking after.
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, at this time we have I'd say 200. And one of the other important facts that I left out is 40% of the individuals that were identified in the point in time count came here for work. So on that day, on September 27th, less than 5 of those individuals were from the rural areas. 34 of those individuals were from outside of the community. And then 40% of the individuals identified that they came here for work.
Okay, thank you. Then on the your recommendations that you submitted, the Wood Buffalo Wellness Society Permanent Supportive Housing Program, I noticed 2022 to 23 is about $500,000, but whereas they carried over 423,000 out of that, requested 732, and we're giving 696. So I'm wondering how it doesn't add up for me if they carried over 400,000. So what changed?
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko. So this is the TWOW project that you're referring to, and Wood Buffalo Wellness is running that program. So the TWOW project had intended on buying a building and opening a home where individuals can come in and receive support. So in 2022, they had anticipated that they would be purchasing the building. They ran into some challenges. So that money has been carried forward to 2023. They now are in ownership of the building and doing some repairs, and we anticipate that they will be housing individuals in 2023.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. And if we had the estimate of what each agencies will be spending, then that would have been answered in your submission.
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, so we keep a close eye on that. We meet with the agencies monthly to see where they're at. One of the challenges that 2022 brought for some of the agencies is around recruitment. So that's a challenge. When they don't have the coordinators to work with the individuals, then we can't put individuals into the rapid rehousing program or Housing First, because one of the keys to success is that wraparound service. So Housing First is get everyone into a home, but another part of that is the wraparound service. So the recruitment has been a challenge, and all agencies have had a little bit of that, so they haven't always been able to take the full caseload. But we're working, and that's not unlike other industries in the community.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Banjoko. Any other questions from Council for Administration? I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Deanne. Do we have any delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have one registered delegate for this item, Michelle Taylor, with the Homelessness Initiative Strategic Committee, HISC.
Thanks, Michelle. If you could just state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes. If you can remain seated following that for our questions, please.
Good evening, Mayor Bowman and members of council. My name is Michelle Taylor, and I am the chair of the Homelessness Initiatives Strategic Committee, also known as HISC, as you've heard. HISC was formed in 2000 to facilitate the achievement of the community's planned priorities in relation to identifying gaps in services and supports for individuals experiencing homelessness and for those at risk of homelessness. HISC includes representatives from the United Way, Wood Buffalo Housing and Development Corporation, Pathways Alliance, Suncor Energy Inc., rural communities, Indigenous communities, landlords, Alberta Health Services, Alberta Works, and non-voting members from the Indigenous and Rural Relations Department and federal and provincial governments. As a requirement of the Government of Canada, HISC makes recommendations to Council on funding allocations, provides advice on strategic direction, and advocates for ending homelessness. The HISC Committee reviews and recommends funding through an Indigenous lens and in alignment with the TRC calls for action. The HISC Committee recognizes that participation from all levels of government is needed for the community plan priorities to successfully end homelessness. The HISC Committee works in partnership with the rmwb and CPH-funded agencies with the same commitment, passion, and drive to reaching and maintaining functional zero, ending chronic homelessness in this region. HISC fully supports the recommendation put forward by administration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions from council? Councilor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair, Mayor Bowman. Not a question. There's never a question, Michelle. Your heart's always been in the right place. And I know every day, like, you know, even when you were downtown and now you're up the hill, not the best job in the world, but I know there's lots of moms and kids feel safe when they see your face. And you're a staple to those people in the community. So keep up the good work and really appreciate what you do. You know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Are there any questions for Michelle? Councilor Banjogo?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Just to appreciate all the workers in the field. I've worked in that sector before, and I know that you've got to love it to do it. So thank you, and thanks to everyone who works in that sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Councilor Banjogo. Michelle, what are the most common challenges that you see when it comes to homelessness in the community?
Well, there's a few. So one of them is definitely, I would say, being filled by the New Chihuahua project. So that was a major problem that we had. We did not have Indigenous specific services that worked effectively for that community. So I think that's a huge benefit to this region, seeing that project get off the ground. So we really look forward to that. Also, in terms of mental health supports, the wraparound supports for people experiencing homelessness, like all the other people experiencing mental health issues, far more complex now, 3 years past the start of the pandemic than before the pandemic. So people experiencing homelessness are having much more intense and much more complicated issues that really depend heavily on those wraparound services. So making sure those continue to be there or are even expanded in the future as needed is going to be something we need to keep an eye on.
Okay, thank you. And this is hypothetical, but if there was one thing you could get now, besides the funding, of course, which for the public knows that the funding here comes from the federal and provincial government, but if there's one thing you could, that would be something that would help almost immediately, is there one thing that comes to mind that we can be doing as a community?
There's not a lot of money for recruitment, and the wages that are paid to the staff that are hired by these grants is not very competitive. So there is turnover. It is a very stressful job, although a very rewarding job. But burnout can be high, especially with all the other stressors outside of their job that are going on at the moment for all community members. So I do think that that would be wonderful to have, is to have some money for recruitment and for retaining staff, and that also looking at compensation. So I know people don't want to hear that now, but in a number of nonprofit sectors, including homelessness, that is a real issue, I think, right now.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for your presentation, Michelle. I was just wondering, is our homeless population been increasing over the years?
Well, it's actually been, we've been doing I think a wonderful job. I've been on HISC now for 7 years, Deanne, I think, something like that. And in that time, our numbers have fairly consistently gone down. So I think introducing rapid rehousing, for instance, which we didn't have at the very beginning, and having that eviction position that supports people not being evicted is, I am a landlord. Waypoints is a landlord. We have an affordable housing building that some of the people who are experiencing homelessness or in danger of homelessness are in our building. And it is a real adjustment from living on the street to being in a home again. We always think about how positive it is. It is very positive, but it can also bring a lot of stressors that people who haven't lived on the street, like myself, and I'm sure many of you, would not even realize that these people are experiencing, going from being on the street to being in their own apartment or room. So, yeah, I think the landlords often need a lot of education about this program and support as well, because if people are having a negative impact on each other in an apartment building, the landlords typically just want to expediently fix that as quickly as possible. But it's a very different situation with people experiencing homelessness or in danger of homelessness, when some particular supports could help them stay and be a really positive part of that community in that apartment building.
Thank you, Michelle, and I just want to thank Waypoints for coming out to the rural. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, and thank you for the work you do. Just a really quick question. Has there been a greater challenge with educating landlords since the municipality stopped dealing with landlord tenancy? Has this been more challenging for this sector?
That is a really, really good question. I guess not speaking as the chair of HISC, but as a landlord, Waypoint's landlord that has a building, I haven't found it worse, I don't think. But Deanne, have you heard of anything?
Through the chair to the presenter, from our experience as administration, we haven't noticed a change. Like the province has a landlord-tenant advisor as well. So we've been leaning into that because that's where it should be funded. I think the initial transition, there was some challenges, but now that we're a few years in, we're not seeing it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Do you have any other questions for the presenter from council? I'm not seeing any, so thank you. Thank you for everything you do, Michelle. It's appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Benjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that $5,267,728 be allocated to the 2023-2024 Community Plan on Homeless Grants as outlined in attachment number 1, dated February 28, 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Benjoko. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Are there any further questions of council for administration, followed by debate? I'm not seeing it as a call for a vote. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have the report on the 2023 Public Artwork Plan. I'd like to invite Deanne Berge back, Director of Community and Protective Services, and Sharon Heading, Chair, Public Art Committee, to introduce the report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Deanne Berge. I'm the Director of Community and Protective Services. With me this evening is Sharon Heading, the Chair of the Public Art Committee. We are presenting the highlights from the 2022 Public Art Wood Buffalo program and the proposed 2023 work plan. The Wood Buffalo Public Art Plan was approved by Council on May 26, 2021, and provides a comprehensive framework for the public art program with desired outcomes and defined program areas. The mandate of the public art program is to strengthen community identity and sense of place through the creation and development of public art in the region. The Public Art Plan identifies a focus on acquisition, artist and community, temporary art, public sites, private sites, and conservation.
The Public Art Plan strategies aim to build and achieve the desired outcomes of a robust public art ecosystem, sustained structures and supports, connected community, visible Indigenous presence, and a vibrant public realm.
The Public Art Work Plan includes information on in-progress public art projects and outlines projects to be initiated in 2023, along with a drawdown request from the Public Art Reserve. The Public Art Work Plan aligns with the Wood Buffalo Public Art Plan and supports its implementation in collaboration with the Public Art Committee and the Interdepartmental Public Art Working Group. We'll now move into the highlights from 2022 and present the 2023 Public Art Work Plan.
The acquisition program will acquire works of art that enrich communities, support local artists, and form a visual history of the region for the use and enjoyment of the people of Wood Buffalo. The highlights in 2022 include the permanent installation of Winter Solstice, The Longest Hunt by artist Amy Keller-Remp at Doug Barton's Cabin, reconciliation artwork for council chambers. These artworks were created through discussion and guidance of the Circle of Knowledge and Artistic Expression, along with artist Frederick MacDonald. 5 reconciliation artworks were developed, which include works titled True North, Teachings, Spirits Have Flown series. A talking stick was crafted by Elder Shirley Arthurs. It was also added in council chambers and honors the sharing circle process used to achieve consensus when the artist selection and design. In 2023, we'll focus on development of an acquisition program, building a collection of artworks that have relevance to Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, and Treaty 8 territory. Documentation of the artworks held in trust will continue, and development of annual review process and maintenance plan for the safekeeping of the collection will be initiated. 7. The Artist and Community Program will provide opportunities for local artists and community to co-create projects with shared goals, themes, and ideas. This program is aimed at supporting, and I lost my page, small-scale projects, including a collaborative approach between artists and participating members of the community. Initial research occurred late in 2022, and a pilot will roll out in 2023. This program is designed to deliver 2 phases, community engagement and project development. The program will be accompanied by a series of workshops that support artists and community
through the application of process, creating understanding for what is meaningful public art, collaboration, and skill development. Temporary works are for a specific event or a time frame. Those works are not considered part of the permanent art collection. Programs include the annual street banners, graphic arts, murals, public art exhibitions like Ignite. Highlights from 2022 include our Mural Academy, which was an urban arts mentoring program, and led by artist A.J. Loudon from Edmonton. This program was developed in partnership with Wood Buffalo Integrated Youth Network and Nistaweo Association Friendship Center. It ran from the end of July through August and highlighted a series of capacity building opportunities for local artists ages 12 and up. Over 120 participants engaged in a variety of activities that included an artist talk, workshops, and mini mural projects. The youth from Nistaweo Association Friendship Center inspired a fresh transformation of the Borealis skate park pad, and the mini mural project worked with local talents to beautify 27 concrete barriers, which are now on display at the corner of Franklin and Morrison. The street banner program had 100 submissions. 12 designs were selected, which included 3 rural artists, and the program had a strong youth presence with 65% of the entries. Under temporary art, the 2023 plan for temporary art program will feature the annual street banner program, a new lease program which we will reinvest into the local arts community by leasing Ignite artworks from We'll reinvest into the local arts community by leasing artworks for municipal facilities. And Ignite, now in its 7th year, is a 10-day art installation exhibit that will be hosted in October this year and will feature the art installations featuring spotlight sessions and artist workshops. The Public Sites program supports the creation of permanent public art for the public realm in new and renewed facilities, parks, developments, and other infrastructures. Projects can take many forms, from a discrete sculptural object to a functional element, from an aspect of the design of a building or public space to the design of entire elements of public infrastructure. Contemporary approaches that are being used more increasingly are including artist on design teams, public art, residencies, and curator-driven projects. The highlights of 2022 include bringing Jess Croucher in as our Indigenous curator, who supported creating processes and opportunities that were inclusive, respectful, and in harmony with Indigenous practice. Kiam Park features a couple of projects, which include the Public Art Bench program and mural. The mural was installed in 2022, featured images from the pop-up photography tour hosted in partnership with Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo Economic Development Tourism. The Public Art Bench program aims to strengthen the visual connection between rural and the urban communities. The pilot program produced 4 benches: Call of the Wild benches by Amy Keller-Remp. These benches can be found in Kiam Park and Vista Ridge Skateboard Park, and Follow the Sun benches by Kritsana Nowaki can be found in Kiam Park. The second bench is set for installation in Anzac Community Park in the spring of 2023. The 2023 work plan for public sites will continue to work with our Indigenous curator, and we look forward to the expansion of the Public Art Bench program with the addition of the community of Fort Chipewyan.
Thank you, Sharon. The Public Art Program is proposing a $214,000 drawdown for the following allocations in the 2023 work plan. $60,000 for the acquisition program to enhance municipal facilities through permanent installation of art. $139,000 for the temporary art program, which includes street banners, the lease program, mural relocation, and Ignite. And $15,000 for public sites to cover additional costs related to the fabrication and installation of benches in the rural areas. There are no additional funds required for the Artist and Community Program in 2023, as there's a $70,000 carry forward from 2022. The smaller drawdown request for the 2023 work plan, in comparison to other years, is due to focusing on completing existing projects prior to starting new ones. The Public Art Committee reviewed the work plan at the February 8th, 2023 meeting and passed a motion to recommend the adoption of the 2023 Public Art Work Plan. The administrative recommendation is that the Public Art Public Art Wood Buffalo 2023 work plan provided as attachment 1 to the report dated February 28th, 2023 be accepted as information, and that $214,000 be drawn from the Public Art Reserve Fund to support the Public Art Wood Buffalo 2023 work plan. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanne. Thank you, Sharon. Do we have any questions from council? Councilor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair. Great work by your public art. You know, like we drive around the community the last 5 years. You've really done a stellar job. And I can't wait for the bridge abutments to at Responders Way to be painted, you know. And I believe, through the chair, I do have a question, Mayor Bowman. Deanne, I still think is it 0.05% of our capital budget goes to find people still?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, that's correct. It's 0.5% of approved capital projects.
And we should have a stash of cash in there now, because I think that's about 5 years old.
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, in the report, the Public Art Reserve is at $3 million.
And you know me, Mrs. Berger, you worked with me long enough to know you could give me 20 reports and I'd forget what was on them. But anyways, keep up the good job. And anytime we can enhance our community, I know earlier we were talking about pot shops and stuff, but if we ever took the time to decorate our community, even the bridges, we have a bridge over there that's been smacked up for 3 years. It's like art, right? So your people go out and do beautiful things. And all it takes is for one turkey to come along and put an X on it. But if you let that X stay, the next day something else gets X'd. And all your work is down the tubes. But I see in this community, we get a bad rap from the outside. But I don't think you had a piece of art here yet that was vandalized. And some of the stuff I hear is like I'm living in another community, because people are very respectful in the community. And you really took this art to a whole new level, and we were proud when we made sure you had some cash, and I don't see a big waste in cash. My last question is, the old theater over there, when do you think you'll be breaking the champagne off the corner of that one? And it may, like, you might know something. I know you're probably not responsible for it, but...
So I guess I would be taking off my hat as a volunteer.
Right, and putting your hat back on as a boss.
Put on my hat back on as a staff member of Arts Council, which is not really fair to the Public Art Committee. But I would say we're proceeding on plan and on budget with caution. So we're really hoping in the fall of ¡24, if, you know, any wood I can find to knock on.
Right here.
Yep. Well, we're hoping for a fall of '24. We won't incur debt to do it. So yeah.
Well, you know, I think it's one of the legacy pieces of your work and your people that you're going to leave behind, and I think that the people that we have in this community, you know, and I'm a bit biased, I guess, because the kids that come out of Holy Trinity, and I've just seen so much art over the years, and it's you know, like it took us, I don't know, when Chuck Knight was here, it took us how long to get a piece of art hung in our own chamber. But just keep on the good work. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Stroud, your question?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. To Sharon, is the mural showing the hamlets from Fort Fitzgerald to Conklin and Fort McMurray in between going to be a permanent fixture in Kiam Park?
We have a plan to move it because I don't think it's any secret that building is coming down. And that is in fact not a mural but a wrap. As we mentioned in the report, it is a compilation of the photographs from Lucas Hayward and Crystal Mercady's cross-community epic visit. So it will be relocated, and you'll get to keep looking at it. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a secret. It's a secret. All will be revealed at the appropriate moment. But I know she was. I mean, I did offer to wrap your house with it the other day, but we're, no, it is being saved. It's a beautiful piece. You're right. It truly represents all things from urban to rural in a beautiful way, and we won't let it be lost. I think you'll be thrilled.
Thank you, ladies.
Through the chair to Councillor Stott, I just want to add to that it's not really a secret, but we still have some details to work out before we publicly say where it could be going.
We won't define secret right now. Councillor Cardinal, you have a question?
I do, yes. Thank you for the presentation. I don't know if I missed it. Is there anything happening in Ward 2? Fort Chip, Fort Fitz, and Fort Chipewyan, Fort Mackay, sorry. And if so, what is happening?
Respectfully through the chair, yes, there is. I just realized I'm looking at myself, which is really weird. I'll look over here. We're currently working in Fort Chipewyan to deal with the part of the bench program that's happening in KM Park, where we're doing the urban-rural matching benches, and the call is currently out, and we've had the response from artists in Fort Chipewyan, which is really exciting. So there'll be a bench there. I'm not sure of anything happening in Mackay at the moment. Nothing that I'm aware of through public art. So yes, but yes to Fort Chipewyan.
Thank you. I just so Fort Fitz and Fort Mackay is, I guess, in the works. Hopefully.
We're looking at all the rurals, but plans haven't been made for everyone, one at a time. So right now, Chip is our priority, and then we'll look at what comes next. And all of those communities are, of course, involved in the banner programs.
Okay. Well, I'd like to have those other communities sitting right beside Fort Chipewyan. So thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Any other questions for Sharon or Deanne? I'm not seeing any, so thank you. My only question is how you're going to do more than you've already done with the art we have in the council chambers and everything else in town. You have a job set over you to do better than we've got now, so thank you for everything you do. Do we have any delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have no delegates.
Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Public Art Wood Buffalo 2023 work plan provided as attachment 1 to the report dated February 28, 2023 be accepted as information, and that $214,000 be drawn from the Public Art Reserve Fund to support the Public Art Wood Buffalo 2023 work plan.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Can I have someone second that motion? Councillor Ball?
I second that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Council for Administration, followed by debate? Not seeing any, I call for a vote. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have a report on Wood Buffalo wayfinding strategy. I'd like to invite Matthew Harrison, Director of Communications and Engagement, and Nadia Power, Manager of Public Engagements, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Good evening, members of council. For the record, my name is Matthew Harrison. I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement, and I'm here to present the proposed Wood Buffalo wayfinding strategy. For this engagement, I'm joined by our Manager of Public Engagement, Nadia Power. Nadia and her team have overseen this project, so she's quite familiar with it. The project was born out of a request from the Waterfront Advisory Committee, where there was a call to have proper signage to improve movement around the waterfront and the downtown. And rather than putting together something specific to just that area, we thought it would be more prudent and effective to develop an overarching strategy that would then guide the creation of neighborhood and community wayfinding plans throughout the entire region. And it's this overarching strategy that we have brought before you today for your consideration. I'd also like to note, in addition to the work on this strategy, we've been developing a Fort McMurray downtown wayfinding plan, and we'll look to bring that to council in April. But I did just want to mention that now because we do touch on it as we discuss it as part of this initiative's development. What is wayfinding? So in its simplest form, it's a way to identify where you are, your destination, and how to move from one spot to another. It takes various forms, examples of which you can see on the screen. There's what I would call traditional signage in the center photo there. There's a mural, and public art is very much part of wayfinding. And of course, there's a Birchwood Trail information board with mapping and route information. Of course, that's from the Suncor Evergreen Trail. These are all examples of different aspects of wayfinding. They help identify where you are, a destination, or how to move about. There are multiple benefits to wayfinding. And while wayfinding signage does include signage for vehicles, its presence can encourage more active modes of transportation, such as walking. It can also help identify or reflect the identity, character, and history of a community. For example, the incorporation of historical facts and the inclusion of Cree and Dene languages. And of course, it helps people navigate the community, be it residents or visitors. On further reflection on this slide, I would also suggest that wayfinding is important to Wood Buffalo because it highlights what's important to Wood Buffalo. And Nadia will touch on this more in depth, but part of the wayfinding process is to talk to the community and to understand what and where the important places are for residents and then highlight them. With wayfinding, depending on who you speak with, there could be a number of ways to define what it is, how it is done, where signage is placed, and so on. So it's important for us to have this overarching strategy to guide how we develop our plans and move forward. Ultimately, this strategy provides the guiding principles, recommendations, considerations, and design. It's our framework and foundation for the wayfinding initiative that will inform the creation of the neighborhood and community plans. All that being said, I will now turn it over to Nadia to discuss how the strategy has been developed.
Thank you, Matthew. We worked with a consulting team that we hired through the normal RFP process. We brought 818 Studio on board to help us with the development of the plan. We also had an internal project team made up of representation from many different departments, and they provided advice and guidance throughout the process. First of all, we conducted an audit to get a good understanding of the signs that we already have, the elements of wayfinding that already exist around the region. We looked at the already approved guiding documents, past plans and strategies, which would help us understand what was needed in an overarching strategy. We undertook extensive community engagement. There were presentations and discussions with residents, many members of council, Indigenous partners, and stakeholder groups. The Participate Wood Buffalo page included online surveys, mapping tools, an idea widget. We held a lunch and go session right here at City Hall. We discussed it at community coffee chats, neighborhood engagement series, and community engagements right across the region, in person and at virtual open house style events. Input that we gathered provided direction for developing a preliminary design or a look and feel for signs. Some sign prototypes were manufactured, and we installed those downtown here in Fort McMurray from early in September until October. Feedback on those designs and prototypes was gathered online, in persons, at more meetings, and if you attended the Fort McMurray Fall Trade Show and Market, you would have seen us there as well. The wayfinding strategy that you have before you now reflects best practices advised by experts in the field, and it is informed by extensive community feedback. Community input is vital in creating a wayfinding system that we could feel connected to. We engaged to learn perspectives, priorities, and experiences supporting wayfinding in the development of this strategy that works for us and for our region. In addition to the What We Heard reports that you can find for any of the campaigns that we work on, this strategy clearly presents what we heard and how it was directly implemented and integrated into the strategy. One of those ways is through the development of 5 guiding principles. I'm going to go through those now. The first, celebrate wood buffalo. Banners, illustrations, and signs reflect and celebrate the diverse character of the local community or neighborhood. As Matthew mentioned, interpretive signs have information about locations of special cultural and heritage importance. Furthermore, the inclusion of local Indigenous languages honors and raises awareness of the true history of the region, including traditional names and connection to the land. Sign, family, and other wayfinding elements celebrate and affirm each neighborhood and community's sense of place and space and the sense of belonging. Wayfinding elements help create beautiful streetscapes that make residents proud. Related to creating that sense of place and belonging, principle number 2, connect people to places. Directional signs provide vehicle and pedestrian route connections between important destinations and provide safe, active travel. Promote safe, active travel, Wayfinding sign designs and colors create connections within the region. Principle 3 is about considering pedestrian needs. Wayfinding signage provides direction to pedestrians and people using alternative modes of transportation like bicycles or mobility scooters. Maps and walk times to places of interest encourage residents to walk to local destinations and facilities. And pedestrians with eyes on the street really do help make communities and neighborhoods safer. Principle number 4, ensure consistency. The visual identity used in the wayfinding program is consistent across the region through the use of brand elements including typefaces or fonts, color scheme, and materials. Municipal brand standards reinforce the identity of the region. Destination names, abbreviations are consistent across signage types. The wayfinding sign family or group of signs is comprehensive, and it includes a variety of sign types to meet community and neighborhood needs. And a similar look and feel are applied to all sign types. And finally, principle 5, wayfinding is for all. Wayfinding includes fonts in sizes and colors that users can read. Pedestrian signs include universal icons and destination names in Cree and Dene. Wayfinding information is accessible and inclusive, and it makes the community welcoming for visitors and newcomers since it's easier to get around and find your place. Simple, visible wayfinding signs logically present information in manageable amounts and minimize clutter and unnecessary design elements. Back to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Nadia. In terms of next steps, of course, the first step is the recommendation to adopt the wayfinding strategy here before you this evening. In addition to this, we'll be wrapping up the downtown wayfinding plan and then share it with you. We're also working on a policy that will cover several aspects related to the visual part of our department's work, things like logo, brand standards, signage. These are things that are already existing, but we're going to pull it all together and give it a little bit more heft and formal governance in a policy, and we'll be incorporating aspects of this strategy as part of that policy. You'll note that we are not requesting funding for signage at this time, but we will look to develop a request for budget 2024, as well as explore other funding sources that may be available, such as grants. We'll also look to establish a timeline for the development of neighborhood and community wayfinding plans, which of course flow out of the strategy. And lastly, we will regularly monitor and evaluate the strategy to ensure it meets our needs. And to make sure we do that, we actually have it written into the strategy that we formally review it in 5 years' time. And that concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Nadia. Do we have any questions from council? Councillor Ball.
I'll go first. Thank you, through the chair. I guess this is nothing new. I mean, I think wayfinding was brought up in 2006 under the placemaking initiative, so it's finally good to see that it's getting here. But I guess my question is, have we looked at what potentially this will blow up to? Signage in these locations, it's a lot. And have we looked at what the overall cost would be relative to doing that much signage?
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Ball, that's a great question. And you're right, you can make it as complex as you want. So certainly maybe I'll start with kind of in the background as we're working on the downtown wayfinding plan, where we're looking at different aspects, and we'll be, as I said, bringing that to you in April. We'll have a little bit more of an idea of how complex or how comprehensive it could be. And the costing, it really varies for signage depending on the sign. And you saw some of the examples through the slide deck. So some may range anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 per sign, including the hardware to implement it, as well as installation. To some of the larger signs being more expensive, say around 20,000 kind of thing. So really, part of our budget request would reflect that, and what council's appetite would be for approval. Now I know for the downtown wayfinding plan, right now a very rough estimate would be about 960,000, and that would be fabrication of the sign and installation. And I would note that that's probably the more complex of areas. If you're looking at doing, say, a Timberlea wayfinding plan, you wouldn't find, there aren't as many, let's say, larger amenities like signage for, say, a SNI or for Mac Island or a heritage village, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Except that, and I can appreciate you're probably not there yet, but I mean, you look at Timberlea, it does have high schools and major parks, St. Croix Athletic Park and so on. So you may be directing people to all those different locations. And if you peel apart the Birchwood Trails, you got 50 some odd kilometers with multiple intersections that could, I'm curious what the end cost would be to create something like this. And I assume that will come in the future.
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, yes. And it would also depend on the individual neighborhood or community plan as well, and how complex we get it. Nadia, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that. Or
Yes, if I may, thank you, Matthew, and through the chair to Councillor Ball. We did look at that, and that's one of the things that we did explore when we were looking at the recommendations, how we would implement this, is to have a staged approach to implementing signs in any area. So for example, we looked for advice on, would we go in one fell swoop install all of the signage, or would it make sense to kind of, if we're looking at the downtown area, for example, would you go and put all of the signs in one area, or would you be better off kind of looking at the higher traffic areas and putting all of the signs in the higher traffic areas and flowing out from there? So we did look at many ways that we could stage implementation of any plans that we develop. As Matthew talked about, the downtown plan that we're going to be bringing forward to you, we're working through the process of using this strategy to develop that plan for the downtown area. And our intention is that we would use this strategy to guide development of plans for the rest of the neighborhoods in the urban area and for communities in the region. All of those would be based on whatever the we'd be taking into consideration what the financial implications will be for planning for a staged approach in implementing those in any of the neighborhoods and communities.
And if I can just add to that too, it's not as if the intent of the strategy is to swoop in and suddenly change all the signage. That's not the intent at all. And even the development of the different wayfinding plans, that would be staged over possibly even a 5 to 10 year period. So it's not that we would be suddenly just popping these things out left, right, and center kind of thing.
Exactly, yes. And just to add, the intention will be that as signs that already exist, that would be considered part of the wayfinding plan, come to the end of their life. That's when we'll be looking at replacing existing signage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Dogar, you have a question?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, presenters. It's a good presentation, certainly educative. I just want to ask you, at places I've seen that streets along with the name has also the house numbers also, like particularly in the crescents, if it is written the house numbers, probably it would be easy which way to go. Like Walnut Street, it's a big street. If you go on the wrong side, and it will take quite a time to reach to the other side, and probably straight, and if you go from the where if your house numbers is written, probably it would be easy approach. So is it included in your strategy, such like thing?
Through the chair to Councillor Doger, no, the wayfinding strategy does not actually address things like house numbering. It's more highlighting different amenities within the community that would be of interest. So some easy examples in the downtown area, it would be like a heritage shipyard or a McDonald Island or the hospital. It's not looking at individual home addresses. That would be the responsibility of the owner to ensure that their house number would be visible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Doger. Any other questions of council? I'm not seeing any, so thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Do we have any delegates for this item?
We have no delegates for this item, Mayor Bowman.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Councilor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Wood Buffalo wayfinding strategy dated January 2023 be adopted as an overarching guiding document to support the development of wayfinding plans in the neighborhoods and communities of the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo.
Can someone second that motion? Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I second the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. And we're just going to wait a brief moment till Councilor McGrath returns so we can vote. Are there any further questions for council for administration and debate points? I'm not seeing any, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. I think we'll take a break right now, a 10-minute recess, and reconvene at 8:36. Can I get council to come back to the seats? We resume the meeting, please. Welcome back. Next, we have a report on the 2022 Q4 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendment Update. I'd like to invite Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer, to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer. This evening, Administration is reporting on the capital budget amendments implemented within the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Policy FIN-160 for the fourth quarter ending December 31st, 2022. There was one capital project amendment in quarter 4, as noted on attachment 1, resulting in no change to the overall project budget. The amendment requested a cash flow adjustment of $5 million from previously approved fiscal years into 2022. This amendment is not due to a scope change, and therefore the nature and type of the capital project is not altered. The Rural Water and Sewer Services, RWSS, connection work has been ongoing since 2021. Given the flexibility of the program, it has been difficult to accurately forecast how many lots will connect per year and the resulting budget requirements. Based on the applications approved, it was estimated that an additional $5 million was required to close out the final invoices for 2022. This request was to cash flow funds from future years into 2022. This amendment was reviewed and recommended by the Capital Project Steering Committee. Administration is recommending that the 2022 Q4 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendments Update, as summarized as Attachment 1, 2022 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendment dated December 31st, 2022, be accepted as information. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any delegates for this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have no delegates for this item.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Stroud.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that the 2022 Quarter 4 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendments Update, as summarized on Attachment 1 in brackets 2022 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendments dated December 31st, 2022, out of brackets, be accepted as information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Can someone second that motion? Councillor Weigel.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions of council for administration, followed by debate? Not seeing any, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Moving on to item number 7.1, Councillor's motion. I invite Councillor Ball to speak to his motion. Following that, we will hear from delegates and then questions of council, followed by debate. Councillor Ball, you can go ahead whenever you're ready, sir.
Do I need to reread the motion, or? I don't
Yeah,
have
if you want to read it now, just to reiterate it for everyone, Councillor Ball.
Okay. Whereas there is significant shortage of available ice times for users within our community, and whereas there are currently 4 ice surfaces available, and studies have shown that Fort McMurray is short a minimum of 2 ice surfaces to properly service a community of our size, and whereas many organizations are currently restricted on how many participants can register due to ice shortage, and as a result, some potential users are being turned away. And whereas this prohibits organizations in our community to grow and provide adequate services to our residents. Be it resolved that administration be directed to review the design from 2016 for the Northside Twin Arena at Abrams Landing and bring forward a report that includes the following information: analysis of total cost of ownership, capital construction costs, costs related to the land, and operating costs, analysis of the approved 2023 capital budget that includes projects that would need to be moved to future years to accommodate a project of this nature, and a capital budget amendment should council wish to consider adjusting the approved 2023 capital budget to include this project. So this motion has come forward relative to obviously the concerns mentioned there. I've got some notes here that I'm going to have to read. It's been a struggle for many users just to find ice here, as we only have 4 sheets. Minor hockey's capped its registration numbers in some divisions for the past couple of years. Right now, they currently have 70 house league teams, 4 provincial A teams, 3 provincial AA teams, and 4 female teams. Casual ice users have a difficult time finding open space to rent. Local development hockey groups and businesses have expressed the same concerns. And it's basically difficult for people to get in that aren't already in. Right now, there's approximately, I've got a list of them here, but about 32 different ice user groups that access those 4 arenas. And with the addition of these 2 arenas, it would certainly help out those 32, but it'd give us an opportunity to grow some of the ones that aren't able to come in and use these ice surfaces. The new arena could extend beyond organized hockey, could potentially, school groups could use them for their physical education curriculum. High school hockey could become an option. Projects like, or programs like adult skate, youth skate, casual shinny hockey, which isn't really available right now unless it's later in the day. I just think it's time. The project's been on the shelf for almost 7 years now, and it's time to bring it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Do you have any questions from council? Councillor McGrath?
Thank you. I know the hockey moms are going to love this one, and the hockey dads. I know that we could pull back and dust off the plans for North Side, and I'd be interested to see the region as a whole, the utilization. Everybody wants the catalyst hours. We get that. I think there was a lot of work done with that. The thought of using our facilities at MacAllen to have an EDGE program or an athletics program where the kids get dropped off in the morning, use them ice surfaces, use them and stay at MacAllen for their core subjects was spoken about. But having another couple of ice surfaces would be something that doesn't cost $45 or $50 million. If you go out to the EDGE program in Calgary, Lance, I think you're familiar with that one, just a couple of Quonsets. We want to build Bethlehem everywhere, but I'd be interested, before I could support his motion, would be to do the ice surface utilization in Conklin, in Anzac, Fort McKay. It's no different than a kid leaving St. Albert and going over to Beaumont. It's an inconvenience for sure, but I know that there was a lot of statistics brought up before, and I'm sorry, Councillor Ball, I never got a chance to review them before this evening. But it seemed to me it was more of hotspot ice times than it was shortage of ice, and I think it wasn't 7 years ago this was put on the shelf. This was reviewed about 2 years ago again with the same stats. So I certainly want to say if kids can't play hockey or can't play sports or figure skating and stuff like that, we certainly don't want that. But
sorry, Councilor McGrath, for right now,
I guess the question administration is, the question is, sorry, Mayor Brown, and I appreciate you keeping me in line because I need to be kept in line. The question is for administration. What is the utilization on Anzac and Conklin's ice surfaces today?
Through the chair, I don't think we can provide you that data at the meeting today.
I wouldn't expect it, but I guess in my world, where I come from, if I was getting ready for a meeting and I knew this was going to be a hot button issue, I'd have some, because we have it. We have all this library. So if ANZAC is not being utilized 50% of the time, I guess we have to share, we have $120 million spent on 2 facilities that are underutilized. But anyways, I never expect information the same day, but I know the information is readily available.
Just through the chair, as part of the process, we can certainly, when we report back to council, provide some of the data that we have on utilization, both within the urban center and the rural communities, to give council some context in making a decision about whether to go forward with this particular capital project. But we can do it at that time, certainly.
But I certainly appreciate that. And then the other thing that we done was had a report of what it would look like if we had the 2 sheets on the north side. What would we do down to our downtown core that we're trying to build? I think there's more to it. But I appreciate you bringing the motion forward, sir. Thank you, Mayor Bowman.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath.
Had to squeeze out a question at the end, you know?
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Bajoka, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thanks, Councilor Ball, for bringing this forward. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. I wanted to know why this project was put on the shelf to start with from administration, and then to Councilor Ball, how he arrived at the need. Maybe if you carried out some survey or some utilization.
You want me to answer first? I can.
Yeah.
Well, I know the users personally, and they've basically reached out to me relative to not being able to get ice time that they need to for their programs to survive. I happen to play in a hockey league, and I know what it's like to get ice time. It's tough. And as far as deciding that we needed an additional 2 ice surfaces, that was done long before this council ever came in. It was decided back in, I believe, 2014. The project was it went through a few different iterations, but ultimately ended up being just a 2-sheet ice arena. And in 2016, it got kind of put on hold relative to the fire and other priorities and so on. And then, so I'm just bringing it back to light today because the need was addressed many, many years ago, and we're back there. The need didn't go away. So.
Okay, thank you. Does administration have anything else to add to the part where the project was put on hold? Was it for funding, or was it for the lack of need for it?
So in 2016, I think, as Councillor Ball pointed out, as part of the stressors on the community with the fire, the project was put on hold by the council of the day. It was at that time expected to proceed, but that council decided it was no longer a priority against other priorities, so it was shelved effectively and has remained that way until this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Majoko. Councilor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Councilor Ball, I think you and I have had many discussions. I'm assuming that part of what you're looking for in regards to this from a cost is not the Taj Mahal, but rather a box with 2 ice sheets, bathroom stands, etc., rather than the overbuild that we historically have seen in our community?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. The design that's already done, we've already hired and had an architect do the work for us. I mean, I'm sure it would need a little additional work, but it's nothing special. It's just a twin arena. It's not 2,500 seats or anything like that. It's just 2 sheets of ice, and that's basically what we need.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Councilor Grandison. Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. So my question will be to the CAO. If I heard you correctly in the questions that Councillor McGrath was asking, that will come forward at the next time this project is presented to council?
Through the chair, from my perspective, I think helping council have an understanding of the ice sheet utilization in the region would be an important part of making a decision about a go or no go forward on this particular project. We won't do new study or anything like that, but we'll try and compile some information to provide it in this short time frame to bolster council's debate and discussion.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I do know the ice time in Anzac, and it's definitely at capacity. At this next meeting also, I was wondering on where we are on the life cycle of the Casman Center and the Frank LaCroix Arena, but that would probably be at that time also, because I know one of those arenas is 50 years old. So, and that's would be another capacity issue. But we'll leave it for the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, sir. You see, about this ice pad, I do not know much, but what question arises in my mind, there are already 4 ice pads. And one is already there in Thickwood where you are asking for an additional one. Are you asking some special ice pad that is of national or international tournaments, or the one you are asking is of similar quality or similar value?
Are you referring to Casman or the Centerfire Arena? It wouldn't be like Centerfire. Centerfire's got, I think, about 1,500 seats. This is just a twin arena, normal ice surface. It's not for hosting any major event like the Olympics or anything like that. It's just a simple ice arena with 2 sheets of ice for basically our kids to play on.
So you mean to say there's no other twin arena here in the town?
Sure, McDonald Island has a twin arena. We have 4 ice surfaces total, but based on our population, we should be in the 6 or 7 range, not 4.
You have some rough idea about the calculations of the expenditures, running expenditure?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dogar. Are there other questions of council? Councillor Boussier?
Yeah, through the chair to, I guess, administration or Councillor Ball. I know the north side rinks were, I hate to use the word iconic, but I think they were a bit more than what you're asking for, correct? Like Councillor Grandin had said, we're not looking for a Taj Mahal, we're looking just at a couple simple ice surfaces with some dressing rooms, concession, viewing area.
Well, from what I've seen of the drawings, it certainly doesn't have anything extra. I don't even know that it has a concession in it. Like it's got an entrance, it's got some dressing rooms, it's got 2 sheets of ice, a viewing area that's not huge by any means. So it's
Okay, I guess maybe the question is administration going to look at other options? Like we've heard of sprung structures or, like the Edge in Calgary. Is it just we're going to go back and reprice the north side twin arenas?
So if I may, through the chair, the motion as it stands is for us to essentially reinvigorate the design as it exists and get a costing from both a capital perspective and some operating cost understandings for council. It's not to look at a redesign. It's not to look at a de-scoped version. The project as it was planned in 2016 is a twin sheet arena with some seating areas, the typical dressing rooms. It did have a small concession area, and I think the sort of room for some kind of group meeting kind of space within the footprint, from what I recall of the drawing package. Fairly straightforward, but I would just, so council's aware, in 2016 it carried a capital cost estimate of around 35 million. That was in 2016, so I think that project now would be significantly higher than 35 million. However, we will certainly look into it, get some cost estimating done, and as I said, the operating side of it as well, so council's well aware. Look at some of the utilization numbers. Council can then see it and know what the cost is, and if the decision is not to proceed with that kind of project, but to look at something more reduced in scope, that would be a different project, and we might want to talk about that for the 2024 capital budget in terms of engaging a new design team to design something less that meets whatever council's expectation might now be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Roussien. Thank you, CAO. Do you have any other questions of council?
Do you want me to say anything else?
In a minute. Do we have any delegates for this item?
We have no delegates for this item, Mayor Bowman.
Thanks. Councilor Ball, can you please? Okay, just get a seconder. Can I get a seconder for Councilor Ball's motion? Councilor Weigel?
I'll second the motion.
Are there any other questions of council followed by debate points?
Just one thing to say. I agree with the utilization piece, certainly. I mean, I grew up in Leduc. I played hockey my whole life. And not once do I recall when I was living in Leduc did I have to go to Edmonton, Ardrossan, St. Albert, or anywhere like that for a practice, for a house league game, or anything. Now, when I advanced my team into a traveling team, yeah, absolutely, I did that. But I don't know that utilizing numbers from Conklin is even in this equation at 140 kilometers away for a house league team to go play. And we all know no one's using that rink. Utilization is zero. I believe they have a hockey tournament there this weekend, but it'll just skew the numbers.
Do you have any other questions or debate points from council? Thank you, Councilor Ball. Not seeing any, so I'll, yeah, Councilor Ball, I've received requests like you have for this, and I know you do a lot of bookings, and I do know there's a lot of development teams of youth that can't actually create teams because there isn't ice times in the region, and also on stormy mornings on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. I get probably 30, 40 text messages and messages from parents that are driving to Anzac and to Fort McKay that aren't very happy about the commute and stormy weather. So I do appreciate this motion coming forward. Councilor McGrath?
Thank you, through the chair. Just as long as when administration is doing that review, I believe there's a synthetic ice surface that the municipality bought, but it's packed up in boxes. And it could be up in Fort Chip, or it could be down in Conklin. But Ken will probably know because he probably built it. Actually, but I know that we're not using it. And we're all crying about ice time. There's an option right out the gate because it's bought, and Ken can probably put it together.
Well, I can speak to that. I don't know if it still exists. Public Works owns it. I know it was sitting in a shed for a really long time. I have skated on it. I actually skated on it with a fella named LaRock, and I will say this: it's not easy to skate on. You got to work hard to skate on that plastic ice.
I appreciate that because when there's 20 people sitting around the table and you got one little piece of meat to eat, and somebody looks up at the table and says it's tough. Tough is when you got none. That's what tough is. And I know the synthetic ice, you got to put a little bit of extra go in your legs. We have something that's parked, and what I heard this evening was we got no ice time, but we all sit around here. But there's a solution. That's why we're put here. Like, go back in the barn, and we already got an arena. We're just waiting for us to put it together. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Do you have any other questions of council and debate points? Councilor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think we've got to put teeth on some skates and know the difference between artificial ice, plastic ice, and real ice.
Councilor McGrath?
Thank you. It's nice to see you there, Kendrick, in good spirits. You're a real good guy to the creator. But I tell you what, I was kicking your arse on that synthetic ice about 20 years ago with Lenny Henson. So, and yes, you got to put a little extra work in it, but this here is a lot of work.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Any other questions of administration or Councilor Ball? Not seeing any. Councilor Ball, do you have any closing comments?
Nope.
Thank you, sir. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Councilor McGrath to speak to his motion. Following that, we'll hear from delegates and then questions of council followed by debate. Do you want to read the motion first, Councilor McGrath?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. I move that administration be directed to bring forward for council's consideration at March 28, 2023 council meeting a report on the feasibility of a bus stop at Quarry Ridge subdivision located at the southeast corner of Highway 63 and Mackenzie Boulevard Junction. Such report to take into consideration any ridership, safety, and security requirements.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Do you want to speak to that motion?
I certainly will, because I don't even think it should be a motion. I think it should have happened 3 years ago. Just to, you know, I hear some people squawking in the background, hey, you know, like our own, hey, but when we're talking about somebody's safety and the liability, hey, the liability that I'm going to take, and you guys are hey, that's what I'm getting at, pal. Like, nobody gets it. Here's our legal team, hey, laughing and carrying on the cell phone, but I'm going to tell you something. Right now, in Fort McMurray, the bus goes up to the interpretive center and drops off 15 to 20 kids that work at the Shell store to feed their families. There's another 20, 25 kids that work at Tim Hortons. And every one of those people count on the bus to get to work. But that bus stops at the interpretive center. Interpretive center. And there's no sidewalk from the interpretive center that we built and opened up in '85 to cross Highway 63. And that's where our kids got to go. I don't even think we should let it happen tomorrow. I bought this motion 3 years ago, and I was told by staff they couldn't turn the bus around. Well, we bring B trains in there every morning where you walk your dog. I don't even know why we got to go through this exercise, because the only job we have as city councilors is to protect our community and the safety, not to tell him how to run his job, not to tell a guy from engineering how to put a pipe in the ground. The only thing we're hired to do in the MGA Act is to keep our community safe. And if anybody ever took the time with me in the morning in the dark, maybe one of you guys, and follow that bus. And if that was your kid getting on that bus and getting off that bus and walking across 63, I wouldn't have to be here 3 years later to bring this motion back, because some guy on back of me can't drive a bus. Well, I tell you what, I've had a class 1 since I've come out of Canada College with the jeans. And I can take a bus in there. I don't think administration needs to spend a whole lot of time on this, because the only time people ride our buses are to go to schools. And I know because I lived here. And I followed that bus. Because if somebody ever lies in that highway and gets killed, that's on me. And there's no need for any big deep dives in engineering to go figure out how to take a bus. There's no, it's actually pathetic that I have to bring it back 36 months later. And thank God, the creator up there, there's not a kid splattered on the road. It's beyond me how we're so advanced at giving out millions of dollars, and this thing won't cost us a cent, but it's like pulling hen's teeth. And how upset this evening. I've never been an angel, and I've got myself in trouble. But the very guys that are going to be here defending the municipality tonight can laugh at this. I guarantee you one thing, Paul. I guarantee you one thing. I'll come back in this chamber and bring some life back in this chamber, because this should never have to come to a motion. Never. Somebody asked me the other day, could I give you more time? Man, this is long overdue. Long overdue. And don't forget, we have the Métis 1935. Their building is stopped, so they're going to have an influx of people back up the hill. We have the detox center, and the last time I checked, when I go to those centers, nobody's driving Cadillacs. In fact, the very 1% of our population that rides our buses are those people that work up here now. So I'm not gonna go through the torture of trying to plead. I just think it's just common sense. And if you had a kid, if any of us had a kid that was crossing Highway 63 in the dark of the night when it's 40 below, I myself driving a bus, I wouldn't let a kid off a bus. I drop him off at the shuttle store. And if that's costing my job, I've saved somebody's life. Just that simple. I don't have anything else to say, Mayor, because I'm a little bit, you know what? Dave Codwell's dad got killed in that intersection. I can't bring him back. But boy, I tell you what, I think we can save a life today. And Paul, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist or anybody to change a route. And I know there's a guy in the back, he don't say much, but this guy here ran 1,600 buses back and forth to site, making sure my employees got there in time. He knows the routes. And I didn't mean to pick you out, Joel, but tell you what, if we can save a life, that's exactly why we got elected. Not to tell Paul how to run his people or tell a guy how to put a pipe in the ground. This is a safety matter, and it should be dealt with. And if you think March 28 was too aggressive, I think all we have to do is get a hold of that guy that runs Public Works and just add it as a stop. And I know I don't have all the logistics, but boy, I tell you what, we had a bus go back and forth to the airport for almost 4 years empty, every day. And you got to argue with me to say you can't stop a bus. I'm done with it. I just think that we do the right thing for our people. Just have a bus stop on that side of the road. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Questions for Council? Councilor Ball?
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to say, Keith, I agree with you 100%. Thanks for bringing this forward. Actually, when the motion came out, the notice of motion, I was like, why is this a notice of motion? But no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Ball. And questions? Councilor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you, Councilor McGrath, for bringing this forward. And I totally agree that safety should be the priority. And I also want to say, in my opinion, March 28 is not aggressive at all. If we can prioritize this and make it happen as soon as possible. And I believe this should be one of those cases where we have to recognize that people come before, people should be priority, and our children at risk. And I don't know why it took this long, but since we got here, I would support that this goes forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Banjoko. Does Council have any questions for administration or Councilor McGrath? Not seeing any. Do we have any delegates to this item?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. We have no delegates for this item.
Thank you. Can I have someone second Councilor McGrath's motion? Councilor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Again, I second the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Banjoko. Now, are there any questions or debate points from Council? Not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Marcy Cho, Kim Wiscumpton, Bon Nui. This meeting's closed for this evening. And if Council would mind giving me 2 minutes in the other room, just really quickly, please.